River Road, you got me running way back home. River Road, you got me running all night long. You got me singing some canal boat song. River Road, you got me running all night long.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Niner Nuts. I told you we would be back today. I'm here, Dan, along with Eric and Mr. Jimmy B. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Doing all right.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I guess I'm aware. I'm not colorblind. I know I'm wearing an IU hat. IU is 10-0, so that's who we're going to talk about for the next hour. No, we'll get into the Niners loss here in a minute. But as we always do on Mondays when I show up, we are going to recap everything that happened except for the Monday night game because we obviously taped this on Monday. So let's just go ahead and roll right on into it. Very brief recaps, nuanced or not. Mine aren't particularly nuanced, but anyway, our very first game, Thursday Night Football. The Commies at the Eagles. As I was fearing before, you've got to earn that seat at the big boy table, and the Commanders are just not quite there yet. They are very good. They're just not quite there yet. The Eagles do have enough to be at the big boy table, though. They have a firm control of the NFC East, and they look like they're turning the corner, honestly. That was a very good win.
Yeah, I mean, basically the only team that can beat the Eagles is the Eagles. They almost they should have had 7 more points on the board, so because Jake Elliott missed 2 field goals and an extra point. So they really, if he makes that stuff, the Commies just look pedestrian to them. It would have been a much high scoring game, and it would have been way out of control by the time by the time the Commanders scored that garbage time touchdown. So Eagles look good other than the kicking game. Saquon looked good. Jalen probably didn't make all of his throws that he should have, but he still made enough to win the game. And so, yeah, I was definitely happy with that outcome.
Yep. Eric.
Dan, do you want to roll the little banner? I know you usually have the banner for us.
Oh, I do. You talk about that while I actually write the right weekend.
Phillies looked great for the last month or month and a half, something like that. They've really finally started to put it together and made it look good. Saquon is, it's hard between both him and Derrick Henry as to who's the best free agent acquisition this season, but he's been a fantastic addition to that team. He's really rounded out their capabilities and what they can do as an offense. And then, as James pointed out on one of the other podcasts that we had, their defense has been playing great as well. So Commanders are still feisty, still a good team. They're going to beat some more people. They're going to get to 11, 12 wins, which is way more than anybody thought that they were going to get to this season. And they're going to be in the playoffs, and they might upset somebody in the first round.
Absolutely. On to the Packers and the Bears. There's a lot of rivalry games this week, by the way, I noticed. Packers and the Bears. I refuse to completely blame Caleb for this game. They came out and played much better than any of us, this entire room, was giving them credit for or expecting them to. And they gave the Packers a run for their money. The Packers really, I don't know. I have our thoughts on us, but the Packers are definitely vulnerable, more vulnerable than I realized. And it was a fluke block that ultimately kept the streak alive. And I'm ready for round 2. I think the Bears might actually win round 2.
I mean, division games are always tough. When you don't have Aaron Rodgers anymore owning the Bears, you can get those close games, and things are going to be questionable. Jordan Love just has to probably go through some more growing pains. This being his like second year as the full-time starter. So yeah, I think, I would like to see round 2 as well between those two.
Yeah, I watched pretty much this whole game, and it was really good. The Bears' new offense still looks like very much a work in progress, which obviously you would expect that given that they didn't have a whole lot of time to install it. Caleb didn't look terrible.
Question mark?
Yeah, I mean, the game was on the line, and he made plays and he made things happen, and he drove down the field and he did what he was supposed to do. So, I mean, you can't knock on him for that. He looked a lot more comfortable in kind of like the up tempo, hurry up kind of style of offense. And so maybe the Bears should consider running that more because he just looked more comfortable in that. Now he still made some like kind of dumb plays. He took a couple of dumb sacks and made a couple of dumb throws, but I mean, that's fine. But they made it a heck of a game and had every chance to win. Bad clock management at the end. I mean, cost them probably a chance to win.
Yeah.
Eberflus has got to go.
Good note to end that on. He should be fired. Onward to the Jags at the Lions. Jags suck, and the Lions look like they're back to normal. It's weird calling it a get-right game, but kind of had to after how weird that Texans game was last week. But they're back to normal. The Jags still suck. It's amazing Doug hasn't been fired yet. I literally have no more notes.
Yeah, I mean, really, science or chemistry or something, who's ever in those fields needs to actually study what Doug Peterson and Nick Foles did in the Super Bowl and that year, how that was even possible with the way that he is coaching now, and how St. Nick wasn't anything but a saint in Philly his whole entire career. When you got him outside of Philly, really wasn't that good. It's just crazy to think that Doug Peterson and Nick Foles just outperformed Tom Brady on his best day. Like, that was his best. Science needs to figure out how that was even possible.
Yeah, the Lions are clearly very much going on their vengeance tour. They feel wronged for not making the Super Bowl last year. I mean, they had the Niners dead to rights and gave that game up last year. And they're putting everyone in the NFL on notice that they're coming for the Super Bowl this year and that you better get out of the way or you're going to get stomped. And they are stomping people into the dirt. There was no reason for them to beat the Jaguars by 48 points or whatever it maths out to. There was no reason for them to do that, but they're just stomping people to prove a point. And I mean, I can't blame them for that. And that's what you're going to get this season. I mean, this Lions team is really scary good.
Well, one of the tiebreakers, I believe, is point differential somewhere along the equation of how teams. I think point differential is there, and I think the Lions are just making sure that they don't lose point differential.
They're way ahead.
It was, I swear, I think their first 6 drives were all touchdowns, and it was absurd. It was just a curb stomping. It was terrible.
So I think it's funny. We were all like, I don't know if they're going to cover 14 or not.
Right. Don't lose that mindset, though. Don't lose that just because this happened. God, because then you have a game like this. The Vikings and the Titans. The Vikings win was essentially certain, but it didn't exactly get people, I'll just speak for myself, back onto the train that they're going to actually make the Super Bowl. This was not as comfy. I didn't want them to drop a 50 burger to be impressed, but it needed to be a little bit more impressive than this. The Titans shouldn't have been within 10 of these guys. So I still have a lot of questions about if Sam has finished turning into a pumpkin or if there's still some more regression coming down the line. So I'm scared for you Vikings fans. This might not end well.
Yeah, my boy Sam Darnold, I don't know what's going on with him. But I think, the Titans are just a bad team. And just you got to stomp. If you're going to make a statement and say I'm one of the players in the NFC, you got to stomp the Titans, and they just didn't do that. So they were barely at the big boy table, after 5 weeks, and they're definitely no longer anywhere close to that right now.
So as someone who watched every minute of this game because they had a very large bet riding on it, I can tell you that the Vikings are a sham and a fraud. They got bailed out probably 6 times by Titans penalties in which they were given a first down to extend a drive or something of that sort of nature, where otherwise they would have had to, it would have been, third down would have been over and it would have went to fourth down or some other sort of whatever to them. And they got completely bailed out by the Titans at least a half a dozen times throughout this game. The game would have been completely different without those penalties. The Vikings can't run the ball. They have nothing on offense other than Darnold just chucking it 1,000. He just chucks it to Jefferson, and Jefferson is so good that he catches almost everything that Darnold throws his direction. And then every now and then Darnold sprinkles in a couple little passes to other people, but everything else is just chuck it to Jefferson. They threw up some stat during the game where Jefferson has 800 and some yards receiving or whatever, and the next closest person on the team has 250. I mean, it's absolutely absurd.
No wonder Addison was saying free me a couple weeks ago. I noticed.
Yeah, so they're a sham still. They're not going anywhere.
100%. Onward now to the Raiders at the Dolphins. It was a little close for comfort for the Fins fans also until they did finally drop 17 points on them in the fourth quarter. So a game they should have won eventually they did make it happen, even though, yes, they did technically have to lead the whole time, but I don't know. Neither of these teams are making the playoffs. It was just surprising that the Raiders hung in as long as they did for me. Otherwise, whoop-de-doo. I don't care about this game.
Yeah, maybe Mike McDaniels will be the 49ers offensive coordinator next year.
He's not getting fired. I'll interject. He's not getting fired this year.
I don't know, man. It's amazing that, that the Dolphins end up keep winning with I don't know, they have talent, but it's not being used right, I don't think.
I watched a lot of this game too. The Dolphins offense is just so gimmicky is the thing about it. It's all just one quick read and throw it to a fast guy and hope he can just outrun everybody else. That's the whole point of their offense. There's really nothing else to it. And if you can just disrupt the timing of what they're trying to do, it takes them completely out of their game. Raiders offense is bad. I mean, I know that's kind of overstating the obvious, but they have no ability to push the ball downfield. It's very methodical. It's very plodding. I understand now why every week when you watch the scores come up, the Raiders barely get to 20 points because it takes them 10, 11, 12, 15 plays to get down the field if they score. They don't have any big play capability. So they're going to continue to struggle. They're going to be in the game for a top 5 pick. And, I suppose that's going to end up being good for them. Maybe they can get a quarterback. That tight end that they have, though, Bowers, he's legit. That dude is a beast. He's fantastic. The Dolphins could not cover that dude. Just absolutely could not cover him. It was third down, and the announcers are like, "Oh, well, they're obviously going to go to Bowers on this play. I mean, they've gone to Bowers on every other third down play." And then, sure enough, Minshew would just drop back and rifle it as hard as he could immediately at Bowers, and he would just be, "Boop, I got it," and it would be in the middle of 3 Dolphins, and it didn't matter. I mean, they couldn't stop.
That's
unbelievable.
That's awesome. Honestly, good for that kid. Sorry your team sucks, but
yeah.
Anyway, on to the Rams at the Patriots. Honestly, there's something brewing in New England right now. I think we might need to worry about them honestly having a resurgence next year in 25. This is not the same Pats team from last month or even 2 months ago. The Rams nearly blew this game, despite Matthew Stafford having a 4-touchdown performance. So just look out, Bills and the rest of the AFC East. I think the Patriots are actually starting to cook up something pretty good there for them.
Yeah. I mean, we only believed in them for mascot money line that one week. Like we were like, nope, not picking on the rest, but they're, they actually come back and start winning some games, something to build on, for the future. Probably not this year, but next year they might make some steps to actually compete in that division next year, especially with the Jets, just being who they are, and Miami, just they're not really anything anymore. And so like they could easily next year get a 7th seed, as a wild card team in that division, as because the Bills are going to take that division. So, but yeah, they have something to build on there. Good for them.
Yeah, I said it a couple of weeks ago. Drake May looks like what a rookie quarterback should look like. He goes out there, he makes some mistakes here and there, but overall, he looks competent and looks like he fits in the NFL. And he's playing well enough to carry them through some games. Now, the problem is that he has like zero talent around him because they tore everything down in New England and started over. So he's got nobody around him. They've got Ramondre Stevenson, who's like okay as a running back. But I mean, God love him, Kendrick Bourne is their number one receiver. He's not a number one receiver. So, I mean, they just have no talent around him. So to your point, Dan, maybe it's not next year, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 3 years. But if New England can actually build and draft well and maybe get some free agents to come there, this team has a chance to really do something. They're not as bad as their record portrays them to be, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I'll end it with their head coach. His methodology is starting to bleed in, despite how lacking their roster is otherwise. Drake May looks awesome. I don't know. It's going to be a really interesting offseason to see how much of a step they can take after this year, because they're definitely ending on a high note, like the way that they're going. So on to the Browns at the Saints. Oh, Jesus. This is my someone had to win award game, because cool. The Saints beat up the corpse of the Cleveland Browns. I'm not impressed. 7 losses in this NFC race is too much to overcome, so I don't care. The Browns are just inching closer to the eventual nightmare of what's going to be their cap-strapped 25 offseason. I don't know. This is the first time that I've given this award to a blowout, which is really what 35-13 was the final score or whatever. This is just kind of like the Dolphins and the Raiders game. I don't care. Cool. You got some Taysom Hill highlights out of this. Ooh.
Yeah, the Browns just proved to be awful. I see. I always appreciate the Browns' cojones when they do things. They just pick the wrong people to show their cojones with. Like that's just what it seems to be. Like, or just people come there, players come there, and they're just like, well, I was good here, but this is Cleveland, so I'm just gonna play like crap, and that's just usually what happens. I mean, they go out, they make these big moves, they make these, just ballsy, acquisitions, I mean, you look at the Watson trade, like that's ridiculous. But who else thought of that? Who else thought like, hey, he's going to say no, so this is what we're going to do when he says no, and we're going to come back with this. I mean, that takes some cojones, but when you don't actually land a decent player, when you're going out of your way, it's time to come up with a new strategy. It's time to, I think I love Paul DiPodesto personally because of some of the things that he has done in the NFL that were done in other professional sports but weren't being done in the NFL, such as paying for draft picks. Like that became a thing with Paul DiPodesto. So he's not a football guy. he's an analytical guy, and I just don't think what he brings to the table is really helping Cleveland anymore. And they should they should try to figure out another way to move on from him, I think.
I think that it's going to sound a little bit crazy, but I think Stefanski is in danger of losing his job. He seems to be losing this team as a whole. I mean, I get it that like when you had Watson, like, you know, it was going to be shit and that was what it was going to be. But, you know, now moving on to Winston, like, I don't know, Winston threw for 395 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, how do you only turn that in to 14 points? Like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
I mean, you only threw 2 touchdowns.
Well, I know, but I mean, like, but 395 yards. I mean, you were clearly going up and down the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And then to give up 35 points, this was the number 1 defense last year in the league. Like, hands down, like no one else was even close to this defense last year, and they're getting just beat around all season long this year. So I think Stefanski, for as good of a coach as he's supposed to be, and he has won Coach of the Year one time, I think he's in danger of losing his job if this team continues to spiral and they end up going. I was joking with a friend at work today. They have 3 games at the end of the season, which are easily winnable for them. So I think that they'll do the very Browns thing and go on a 3-game winning streak at the end of the season to push their record to like 5-12 and knock themselves out of a top draft pick. But I mean, if they end up going like 2 or 3 and whatever, I think Stefanski might be out the door.
All right. Onward to the Colts at the Jets. Oh my God.
This warms your Indiana heart.
The Jets made this below average defense in Indianapolis look like they could make a run at the Texans. Richardson actually looked like a 3rd overall pick. Literally, this Jets team, this terrible Jets team, is the one shred of joy I still have left in this season, besides doing the show with you, obviously. But oh my God, I continue to laugh in Packers fan every time I see any coverage of this Jets team. They should not have been this bad against how intimately I know this Colts team is bad.
Yeah.
Just hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
We should just relegate the Jets to, FSC and bring like, Indiana, Ohio State, like, Oregon. Like we should trade the Jets and throw them back into college football and bring like one of the universities on so that we could have a more competitive team instead of the Jets.
We need relegation like soccer. Absolutely.
Yeah, we need to get rid of the Jets because like they're not everything that they do just burns. It just like they touch it, it burns. It just everything. Like they could get this guy, they could get this guy, they could get this guy, and it doesn't matter. Like they just can't put it all together. And they go from one GM to another. They're just throw them into college football, make them a university or something like New York Jets University, where all you do is play football, and we have like little classes where like you draw with crayons or something like that. Just get them out of the NFL because they are just bad, and they continue to be bad, and we don't need to see any more of them.
I think the most interesting thing about the Jets is that Aaron Rodgers was supposed to solve their biggest problem, which was quarterback, and he is the biggest problem with the Jets. They would have been better off just keeping Zach Wilson. I mean, that's the crazy thing about it. I mean, this team is actually very talented on the offensive side of the ball. Breece Hall is pretty good running back. Garrett Wilson is fantastic. Devontae Adams is still pretty good. Alan Lazard was having a really good season up until the point that he got hurt. The kid that backs up Breece Hall is also not bad. So I mean, like, there's all sorts of offensive talent. The problem is that Aaron Rodgers sucks. And so, I mean, he's completely holding this team back. And
Oh,
then defensively, they've fallen off the map since they fired Saleh. So, I mean, like, they just have completely, like, self-destructed beyond belief. And my favorite part is that Aaron Rodgers was on the McAfee show the other day saying that he might come back for 2025.
oh.
Please do. Please do. That would be fantastic.
Have you
Oh,
have
cool.
you seen the memes where people are like, "Hey Han, did you do the dishes?" and they just go Aaron Rodgers because they know they're washed, you know?
Oh my God. That's
Nice.
so funny. Just
Yeah.
please come back next year. Bring Mike McCarthy when he gets fired from Dallas. Just
Oh yeah.
let's do this all again next year.
Oh, Mike McCarthy is the coach of the Jets? Oh my God, what a layer, Dan. I love it.
Aaron Rodgers failing so hard, it just fills my heart with joy. I
Yeah.
can't. Oh my God. We need to we need to move to the Ravens at the Steelers. This game, while it wasn't visually amazing, this was a real fun slobber knocker of a game to watch.
Yeah.
This was the game I was primarily focused on between this and the Jets and the Colts. And it was just what defense will break first. Who is actually going to find the end zone? Who's going to have the ball last? And this time it was the steel curtain that stopped the Ravens. They now have a really firm grasp on the AFC North now. I didn't realize that this game meant that much until after the fact. And the only thing consistent about the Ravens are inconsistency. I don't know if it's Harbaugh. I don't know if it is Lamar. Something about the Ravens when it matters. They, for the last 3 years, choke when it matters. And
Unless it's an
just
NFC
saw it
team.
again.
Unless it's an NFC team, because then they dominate NFC teams. Like, I don't know if you've seen Lamar Jackson's record against NFC teams.
It's just one. It's like what, 18-1.
18-1. So like, maybe put them in the NFC if you want them to be more competitive or whatever. Because the Steelers are always hanging around. Ravens, and there's a big rivalry there, so everybody gets up for it. But as you said, Dan, when Ravens, when it matters, it's not there. So, it's the AFC North. We all know they're battling back and forth, hitting each other. Steelers come out on top. Now they're in control of the AFC North, which is weird to say because their quarterback situation at the beginning of the season was Justin Fields or a washed Russell Wilson, but they've been figuring out how to win and getting a decent play. So, yeah.
Wilson doesn't look bad. I mean, like, I've watched them play a few games. He doesn't look bad. He doesn't look like Russell Wilson of like 2013 or 2014, but I mean, that's makes sense. It's been 10 years, but like, he's making plays. He's still throwing a good ball. He's still smart as a quarterback. So, I mean, like, he's doing the right things for that team. So, Dan, I'm going to go on my one tangent. What do you guys think about Coach of the Year? Tomlin, Coach of the Year?
Tomlin absolutely needs to be considered. Who was I talking to this about? I think I was talking with my uncle or maybe my mom about this, but no, I 100% agree that Mike Tomlin should be considered Coach of the Year this year.
Because, like, it's Campbell, it's Tomlin, it's, I guess, Reed probably. And
you
then
can put Sirianni up there after last year and how it all collapsed and how everybody was doubting him, what he was, and his culture was not working or whatever. For him to come back and basically come out and like make a statement that my culture works and the way it's been working for the last 6 weeks. If this continues on and they end up, Detroit loses one more game and Philly runs the table, it could easily be the Eagles on top of the NFC instead of the Lions. So
I would do that.
Yeah,
and then
it's not a bad argument.
And then another Coach of the Year is the game that we're going to talk about next is going to be Sean Payton, because he's going to get the Broncos to the playoffs, and that roster is terrible.
Ooh, yeah.
Perfect segue to save some time for our game. Falcons at the Broncos. Who the hell are the Falcons? seriously, I'm not making this my tangent. I really don't know who the hell this team is. Like, Kirk is about to let the NFC South, like, luckily it's as bad as it is, so maybe I'm being facetious, but he's letting the South just slip through his fingers, like, seemingly. But on the other side of this coin, like you were just saying, I see you, Bo. Dude, this last month, like, the Broncos look pretty legit this last month. I'm not going to say they're ready for the big boy table yet, but just strictly from how they've looked this last month, like, the Broncos look pretty damn good, honestly.
Yeah, it looks like they have their quarterback of the future, presumably. And Sean Payton, I guess, him and Russell Wilson just didn't get along, and now he's got a quarterback that'll listen to everything he says, and there you go. You got a winning formula. I mean, it's not the greatest record you'll see, and it is the 7th seed, but still, I mean, for him to come back after basically being questioned is what he was actually doing to come back and maybe lead the Broncos to the playoffs. I think it's really good on him.
Well, I mean, I can say for certainty that sitting here at the beginning of the season, not a one of us was factoring the Broncos in as being a possible playoff team. That's for sure. I mean, we mocked and made fun of Bo Nix and that entire roster. So, I mean, the fact that they're sitting there at 6 wins and moving into a potential playoff spot. I mean, there's, like Jimmy said, they're the 7th seed right now, is a true testament. And I know we've covered it on a couple of the different shows. Their schedule for the rest of the season is pretty reasonable. They can very easily get to like 10 wins, maybe even 11.
The AFC West really got favorable. Like, that whole division got a very, very favorable. Like, that's why we thought the Chiefs were going to go on a run.
Yeah.
But between the Chiefs, the Broncos, and the Chargers, like, it really could be a fight for a wild card spot between them, because they just have that schedule. And I agree with what you were saying before. Tomlin and Peyton both could be very serious contenders for Coach of the Year, along with Campbell and Sirianni.
Yeah, for me personally, when I think of Coach of the Year, I like a guy who raises and elevates a team that nobody really expected much out of this year, right? So, I mean, like, yes, Dan Campbell is doing great. Yes, Andy Reid is doing great. Yes, Sirianni is doing great. But people expected those teams, maybe not as much as the Eagles, but people expected those teams to be great. So, I mean, like, yes, they're doing what they're supposed to do, and I'm kind of somewhat punishing them for doing what they're supposed to do. But I like it when a guy takes a team that everybody was kind of crapping on and is like, oh, really? You don't think we're good? Boom, here you go. I just think that holds a lot more weight to me.
Oh no, the narrative is real. The narrative is real when it comes to that award.
That's usually the way people win the award. Hence why we have Brian Dable, who won in 2022. And where are we now with him? And granted, you could argue, I mean, yeah, Danny Dimes is awful. He's absolutely awful. And that whole roster is pretty much awful, except for like 1 or 2 players. I think we should maybe not be so hasty to start to keep doing that and start actually giving it to you have a good roster, okay? But we've seen in the past that we've seen the dream team, the Eagles dream team, had a great roster, had a great head coach, Andy Reid, basically fell flat on their face, So I think when you get that talent and you win with that talent, you are doing what you are supposed to, and you need credit given to that.
100%.
Easily you get somebody wrong, head coaching or whatever, like it could easily go wrong. But that's not the way the award usually goes. The award usually goes to somebody who just takes over a team and exceeds expectations, even though they could be a sham, the Giants were that year.
For sure. Well, let's move on to thinking of coaches. God, I'll talk about it later, but Chiefs at the Bills. Yes, I know there's plenty of football left. I know the Chiefs didn't need this as much as the Bills did. The Chiefs are 3-0 against them in the playoffs. I don't care. I'm sharing a drink with those unbeaten Dolphins. I'm celebrating this win. They are not going undefeated. Just let us enjoy this one night before you knock them out of the playoffs in the divisional round. Just let us celebrate this one night because everybody was cheering for this to happen, and thank God it did.
I mean, I still kind of hate the ghost of the 72 Dolphins. I wish we could get rid of them somehow, but having the Chiefs do it would suck, and I don't want that either. So I'm glad Josh Allen just knocked them out because, you know, Chiefs
that
fans,
last run he did was amazing.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah.
It's just we need, like, if it's gonna, like, I think everybody would have definitely hated if the Chiefs would have broke that record, just like everybody would have hated the Patriots if they broke the record. But I'm glad it's over. I still don't like the 72 Dolphins thing, but you know, maybe one day when only one person is left on the 72 Dolphins, they'll witness their record being collapsed. That's it.
I forgot Sean McDermott also qualified for Coach of the Year. The Bills are far exceeding, I think, a lot of people's expectations with all the turnover that they had this season. I mean, they lost their top 2 wide receivers. They lost a bunch of people on defense before the season. They lost their coordinator. So, I mean, like,
couldn't agree more.
Sean
McDermott definitely does.
Yeah, I mean, they overhauled a ton of stuff, and yet here they are, you know, right there at the top of the AFC, just behind the Chiefs. And just knocked off the Chiefs. So, I mean, I don't think you can ask for anything more than that out of them. That last Allen run was crazy. I was sitting there watching the game with my mom, and, you know, it was that 4th down, and we were both like, you know, just kick the field goal, make Mahomes go all the way and score a touchdown if he's going to beat you. And then they lined up, and off Allen took and ran for a touchdown. And it was like, wow, okay, I guess that's how it goes. I mean, like, that's pretty.
You can't let Patrick Mahomes have a chance to win the games by a touchdown. Like, the
way that Josh ran, he knew that.
Yeah, I mean, like, Josh has been victimized by Patrick Mahomes so much that no, in that situation, you go for it on 4th down, and you don't give him a chance to win the game. You just don't. Like, it's Patty Mahomes, one score. It doesn't matter if the whole length of the field.
I just didn't like the fact that if you turned the ball over, all the Chiefs needed was a field goal. That was the only aspect that I didn't like. So, and it was a field goal to win, not even a field goal to tie. So, I mean, like, that was the only aspect of it that I didn't like. That was why I was like, kick the field goal. Now you're up, and now they have to get a touchdown to win. If your defense can't stop them, then that's your fault. But
they fell victim to that so many times. It's not just the Chiefs. Like, they keep doing that, and they're not winning games. So being aggressive there on 4th down, like, I get it, because it's Patrick Mahomes on the other side. And how many times have the Bills lost to Patrick Mahomes when it's been one score, you know? So,
you always advocate for aggression, Jimmy. I get you.
Yeah. By the way, before we get to the last game, if Sean McDermott does win this award, he will be the only coach that I'm aware of that used a 9/11 analogy to motivate his team. So that'd be amazing.
That wasn't good.
God, I love that story so much. Anyway, the last game, the Bengals, the Chargers. The Chargers, they didn't charge. The Chargers didn't charge. They tried so hard to, and they didn't. They finally closed out a game, and they won. They have 7 wins now. Like, the AFC West, good for them. They're as much in the wild card race as anyone else. And I do, like, seriously, I do feel bad for the Bengals. Like, I've crapped on them a lot on this, but I do low-key feel bad that literally Joe Burrow has 27 touchdowns and 4 picks and 4 wins to show for it. Like, that sucks. I feel really bad for him, honestly.
Yeah. Honestly, like, the mistake wasn't the Bengals, you know, trying to not sign Joe Burrow. The mistake was Joe Burrow accepting his fate that he was a Bengal, you know, like, you know, and somehow forcing his way out of Cincinnati. You know,
he can just retire like Carson Palmer did years ago. He can be like,
like, you know,
oh
I'm not
my God, that's so
guys.
funny.
Like, it's just like everybody was like, oh, the Bengals are shortchanging Joe, and it's probably, you know, if I would have been Joe, it's like, nope, I'm not playing for this team. Send me somewhere else. Send me to the Jets, maybe, yeah. So yeah, the Bengals, oh man, they're just awful.
God damn, that was a really funny way to put that, James. I'm giving you that one. That was great.
Yeah. I mean, Dan, you've said all season long that something's just wrong with Cincinnati, and something continues to just be wrong with Cincinnati. They just can't get out of their way and win games. This was a very winnable game for Cincinnati, especially if they truly expected to be able to make and push themselves into the playoff hunt. This was a game that they really had to win because they've got to leap a team like the Chargers to be able to get into the playoffs. The Chargers are currently the 5th seed. Bengals are 10th. I mean, that's a game you can't lose. We're going to talk about other teams that should have not lost games here very shortly. But the Chargers are doing way better than I ever expected for a first year under Harbaugh. They seem to have really figured out the formula there. I don't know that they're still really good because I haven't seen them beat anybody that's actually really good because the Bengals aren't good. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when they play somebody down the road that's actually good. But for right now, they're doing what they need to do.
Absolutely.
They're winning the games they're supposed to win. So
yeah, no, and that's going to take them further than we are currently going.
Yep.
I'll pull this up here. If you guys didn't know, obviously, Niners fans, we lost to the Seattle Seahawks at home, so we split the series 1-1. It was 20-17, and the record now sits at 5-5. We just can't escape 500 to save our lives, apparently. And I'll just very quickly go through the numbers. Purdy didn't even hit 200 yards. He had a pick and a really fluky interception, but an interception nonetheless. Christian McCaffrey did fine on the ground, yards-wise, and then he had another almost 30 yards there. So he crossed the century marker again. Didn't find the end zone again. Juwan Jennings, miles ahead of everyone else. 10 catches on 11 targets, 91 yards and a touchdown, our only passing touchdown. And Geno Smith didn't throw the ball 50 times, but actually didn't need to this time. He actually won on his legs because he didn't throw a tutty in the air, but he did get the game-winning touchdown. Kenneth Walker did find the end zone too. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba and DK Metcalf, both over 60 yards, 110 and 70 respectively. And just, I was going to pull this team stats up here because this one, I just wanted to highlight this one before I just sulk for a minute. Because when you look at this, we're so identical. 17-20, 21 first downs and 19 first downs. Third down efficiency, 7 out of 11, 6 of 13. Total plays, 57, 59, 277 to 289. 9 drives, 8 drives. We were so kissing cousins this entire freaking game. But really what screwed it in their favor, 4 penalties to 9. 54 yards is not bad, but every single one of those 9 yards or 9 penalties, except the one on defense, just stymied us. We could not get out of our own way. And I'm just flipping this back to the box score. But no, we just, God damn it, we couldn't get out of our own way. It just is so deflating. Yeah, losing Kittle was not good, but if Kittle was having such a bad time at practice, where was the game plan to take some of the load off and not put it all on 10 catches by Jennings? Where was Schubert? Schubert, how you pronounce his name? Where was any of our backup tight ends to help? Why is Jalen Moore out there as the blocking tight end when he's a swing tackle? Just what the hell happened to our offense? We got Christian McCaffrey back, but then losing Kittle basically made it impossible for us to move the ball again. How many times have we lost with only 17 points now? I don't know the real number, but
every time.
our record when we only score 17 points is just as bad as when we are losing at any point in the fourth quarter by 8 or more points. like it's abysmal. And the Seahawks came in. We're their big brother this year, and they didn't want to get blown out by Big Brother again. And they played spoiler to us at home. And yeah, the NFC West is Cardinals at top 6-5, and everyone else at 5-5. So no, like technically, like the window's not closed. We don't know what can happen in the next 7 weeks of the season, but Jesus Christ, like this is such a hole that I don't know. Like I'm at that point now where it's like, are we actually a good enough team that we can control our destiny? Like, yeah, we have a lot of injuries, but like, yeah, Super Bowl hangover. I don't know. Call it denial. I didn't think was gonna affect us this year, but like, goddamn, we're having one hell of a year, and I'm just so deflated. I'm so deflated after that loss yesterday. Because it gave me literally like no glimmer to cling on to, other than the fact that our division is a hot mess.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. End of scene.
I mean, you sound like 2023 Eagles fans. That's what it is. Like you're having the Super Bowl hangover. This is what happens when you lose the Super Bowl. It wears on you because you spent a whole season getting up to the pinnacle of the sport and ended up losing it, especially the way you guys lost it. This is just what happens. You have the Super Bowl hangover, and teams go through this all the time. And it's just you guys are just that team this year, and so maybe at the end of the offseason, I mean, if you're in the playoffs, if you're not in the playoffs, whatever, we take a giant look at this roster and we see who needs to stay and who needs to go. Like, because this formula that you've had for a couple of years now, something's just not right about it, and definitely need to make some changes. With the roster, I think going into next year.
That's exactly how I feel. That very mildly audible.
Yeah. I realize that doesn't make for good podcast content, but I mean, like, that's what I have right now. We can't stop beating ourselves. I mean, you alluded to it when you were talking, Dan. I mean, we just can't stop killing ourselves. We continue to not finish off drives, which is the biggest harbinger that's happened this entire season. They threw up a graphic, Dan, I'm sure you saw it at one point in time during the game, where we were like second or third last year in finishing drives, and this year we're dead last, just absolutely dead last. So
yeah, full red zone 20 to goal, we were first, and then goal to go, like 10 to the line, we were fourth, and we're dead last in both of them. Or no, not dead last. We're next to last or third to last.
Yeah,
in both of those, we're terrible.
So I mean, we're just not putting teams away when we have the opportunity to put teams away. And every single game where we don't have some sort of ridiculous lead, we lose because the other team hangs around. And as the other stat came up, we've given up the second most points in the last 2 minutes of games this season than anybody else other than the Bengals. So, I mean, we just get into these situations at the end of the game, and then we self-destruct, and teams just come storming back. And as long as they're within 3 or 7 points or whatever, they come back and they beat us. I mean, it's just like clockwork. So I don't know what the solution is. I don't know how they're supposed to fix it. I don't really think that they can fix it. I think it just is, to your point, Jimmy, I think it's just the Super Bowl hangover. I think it just is what it is this season. I think everything is just sort of at a loss, and nobody's really going to be able to figure it out, and it's not going to come back together, and it's just going to be a wash this season. I mean, when we started the season and we were talking things about the beginning of the season and our outlook and what we kind of thought was going to happen, I know that I said that I was not very optimistic about this particular 49ers season, and that I thought this was going to end up being a lot more like 2020 than it was 2023. And so far, unfortunately, I'm right. So, I mean,
it's pretty much like I was about to say, not really, but no, Brandon tore his ACL and Christian was gone forever. Like, no, yeah, you Nostradamus this.
yeah.
Like, you brought this on us.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been quite as devastating with the injuries because I mean, at one point in time in 2020, I mean, like our entire like starting lineup was just hurt. I mean, like there was nobody available to even play. So I mean,
Think of that Miami game.
Yeah.
That Miami game where Jimmy basically broke his ankle and Kittle got hurt and Trent got hurt.
Yeah. So I mean, it hasn't been like that bad from an injury perspective, but just from an outcome perspective, it's been a lot like that this whole season, where just everything is just going wrong. And I mean, like every thing that should be good turns into bad. I mean, you know, Juwan Jennings has been really, and I mean, I guess Kittle too. They've really been the only real lights so far for this season. They've both played extremely excellent all season long. You know, Dan, we were talking a bit in the chat about, you know, next season and what the Niners should look to do in terms of, you know, Debo and his contract, and, you know, should they ditch him and try to keep Juwan and Kittle and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And we can get into all that later as we get into, you know, needing content for the off season and stuff like that. But they're going to have a lot of real tough decisions to make. And Debo's definitely going to be one of them. He was non-existent in this game. Absolutely non-existent.
I just closed the stats, but literally it was like 4 catches for 20 yards. It was pathetic.
Yeah, and we're paying right now. I mean, I think he only makes like $16 million this season, but I mean, we're paying $16 million for that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So I mean, and especially like, you know, he's a captain, he's a leader, he is someone who sets the tone and the pace and the everything for this team. And you don't show up for games, especially when Ayuk went out. Like that should have been your cue to be like, okay, I've got to take it up yet another notch. I've got to really be the man on offense. And he hasn't done that at all. If nothing else, he's faded away further.
You're getting outplayed by our 7th round flyer, who has truly, like, all the love to him. His agent's probably going to quit if he says, "Nah, I'll just play on my contract next year." Like, his agent should quit on him because he has vastly outperformed every single penny that we've given him. And he is playing X as good as Brandon did last year. Like,
yeah,
he's stepped
great.
up. Kittle doesn't look like he's 30, 31. I know he's like about my age. He's still playing like he's 24. And no, I just not to totally belabor it, but no, like I agree with you. Like Debo, like I think Debo would justifiably be let go this year the way that he's been playing. Like it's no disrespect to the legacy that he left, that he will be leaving with us, but dude, you're not an Iron Man anymore. You're an injury risk, and you are just not producing. Whether it's Kyle or we'll have to dissect that after the fact, but just I don't know. But the bigger question or the bigger point, I agree with you. Just we're tripping all over ourselves. We're tripping over our own dingus. Like, not to get so graphic, but we're throwing up all over ourselves. We're tripping on our own junk, and it's nothing wrong with the defense. The defense is just going to get gassed when they're out in the field all the time because there's no complimentary football.
Yeah. To your point earlier, Dan, Juwan has 42 receptions on 58 targets for 588 yards and 4 touchdowns. And he has 30 first downs.
Dude,
Debo,
30 first downs on 48 catches. Just God, that's an insane ratio.
That's first down Freddy type of numbers.
Yeah. Debo has 33 catches on 52 targets. So a very similar amount of targets, 10 less catches, 490 yards. So about 100 yards less, 1 touchdown and 20 first downs. So.
Yeah.
And don't forget, he has 79 yards rushing. Wow.
Dude, I defended Debo, like I've defended Debo as much as one could up to this point, but now when you put me in the corner when I don't have any results to back it up with, like, yeah, we're gonna have to eat a $30 million dead cap hit that I think we can space out, so it's not that bad. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's gonna be really hard to justify Debo when Juwan is playing so much better. We know Brandon can play so much better, and then we have Ricky Pearsall, who is making $1 million next year.
Yeah,
Just-
and we could very easily draft another receiver or even sign another receiver as a free agent. I mean, people are still going to want to come play here.
Yeah, not to
So-
make this a whole dogpiling on Debo. There's far more. There's
Well, yeah.
I
We had yet another special teams miscue. I mean, that was shit.
oh, and that was
So-
on oh my god, that was on Mason. That was
Yeah.
so I screamed, thank God it went out of bounds. James, if I know you missed that play, but yeah, the ball went right through his arms and chest, and he was trying to chase it, and luckily it rolled out of bounds. But like, oh my god.
Yeah. The bigger issue to me with this game is that, and we talked a little bit about it on, I think on Friday's podcast, was this was a game that the Niners absolutely had to win. I mean, there's no room for error on the rest of this Niners schedule. And this was a game that they absolutely had to win if they wanted to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're not making the playoffs now. They're just not.
Playoffs.
Yeah, playoffs.
It's exactly
I mean,
it's
they're
exactly what I texted you. Our playoff window, like not 100%, but like 99.99% closed after
I mean,
this loss.
it's like this big is all it is. I mean, I've got them just looking at the rest of their schedule. I've got them at 8 or 9 wins. That's it.
We're playing the Packers next week and then the Bills after that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I've got them at
we
8 or
needed
9
this
wins.
win for that.
8 or 9 wins is not getting into the playoffs into the NFC. It's just not.
Mhm.
No, we.
So I mean, I don't know what they're gonna do.
I don't know. We gotta figure it out. We have time to figure out. We'll have an answer on Friday. We have to because we gotta step out now. We'll have an answer, but I'll have an answer for you on Friday. Just I am joking, but
Well, I hope you can come up with an answer on how to beat the Packers, because I guarantee you that ain't gonna happen.
they are vulnerable. They're vulnerable. The Bears showed us they're vulnerable. Yes, it was a division game. I don't care. Let me have
The Packers are gonna beat the Niners by at least 10 points.
I am backpedaling slightly, even though division game. I know division games or whatever, and I said I just gave up all hope, but like, just we still got 7 weeks. Let me pretend there's any hope that we have left.
I said it now. I said it with authority. The Packers will beat them by at least 10 points.
We'll have to see, but we have to give a little shout out to our sponsor now, RoyalRetros.com. What is Royal Retros? It is your go-to place to get yourself an authentic throwback jersey. Whether you're a basketball fan or a fan of any of the major sports, they got you covered. And go ahead, Niners fans, check out the Candlestick collection. It's curated with the Bay Area in mind. And when you find something you like, use the promo code Shady Sports, and you can get 10% off of your entire order. Again, it's promo code Shady Sports for 10% off of your order at RoyalRetros.com. RoyalRetros.com. Go get yourself an authentic throwback jersey today. James, we have t-shirts. Let the people know where they can get them.
So, guys, we've been selling T-shirts to raise money for Mountain Comprehensive Care Centers in Kentucky, due to the fact that a Houston Texans minority owner was arrested and charged with very serious sexual crimes in Kentucky, and the NFL just let it slide under its radar until somebody realized this happened 3 months after it happened. And then a year later, we come to find out the Texans owner got a slap on the wrist. Who knows why? I mean, we're not really sure, but the fact that it wasn't originally reported when he was arrested, when he was charged, is contrary to what happens when a player is arrested or a player is charged. We know right away the day of. Absolutely. Taken point, Tyreek Hill earlier in the season, that hit every major social media platform that there was, the literally minutes after it had happened. So we don't think that there's really any accountability for NFL owners, and actually owners' accountability standards are less than the accountability standards of players, even though the NFL has pretty much said that it needs to be the opposite. So to show you where we put our money where our mouth is, we are selling T-shirts to raise awareness to this. Here's our statement. Owner standards are less than player standards. # owner accountability. You can get that in different colors, different sizes, $22.99, starting with t-shirts. Up next, we have our podcast logo art. So anywhere you see us on any profile picture, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, this is our profile picture. $22.99 gets you that on the t-shirt, and we have different styles, different sizes. This here is our alternate logo t-shirt. I have this t-shirt, very high quality. $22.99 gets you that in the t-shirt. They have different colors, different styles, and different sizes. And last but not least, how can you say no to our mascot? A peanut, eating peanuts while sitting on his couch, cheering on the San Francisco 49ers, a true Niner nut. $22.99 gets you that in a t-shirt. Donate to Mountain Comprehensive Care Centers today.
Yep. The link for our Bonfire store and more information on Mountain Comprehensive Care Center is in the show notes, no matter what platform you're watching or listening on. Yeah, I guess the news to end the show is we're not that good. No. No, I could joke too that yes, I'm wearing an Indiana hat. My breaking news is that we have opened as 13-point underdogs to Ohio State. And I find that incredibly disrespectful, and I can't wait for Saturday.
You were talking about breaking news. I don't really have any breaking news, but I mean, I guess the one thing that I'll say is that, we talk a lot about, when teams should start to tank and stuff like that and start playing for draft picks. Like, the 49ers are right on the edge of, I mean, I know nobody does that in the NFL, but I mean, you're right on the edge of shutting down and start playing for draft picks.
Oh,
Teams have done it. They may not have admitted they've done it, but they've done it.
Stuck for luck.
Yeah. Stuck for luck. There was, the game.
Was there a tank for Tebow or anything?
Well,
deep cut there. That's funny.
The year Jameis Winston was coming out, it's obvious that they were tanking. The Bucs were tanking, especially towards the last couple of games of the season. And yes, the mighty Eagles did it as well in prime time against the Commanders. And everybody was like, "What the hell? We shouldn't do this." There was a whole big thing, and teams do it. They should do it until the NFL figures out a way to penalize you for it, but we all know teams do it.
We're not. I will dispute we're not at that point, but
yeah, I don't think you guys are at that point yet. But
we're gonna be there pretty closely after we lose to the Packers and the Bills.
Yeah,
I'm not that optimistic about it, but just to remind you guys, we'll be doing our Week 12 parlay on Friday, and our game. I'll mention it again on Friday. We did get picked as game of the week with Tom Brady and Kevin Burkhardt, surprisingly. Kickoff at 4:00 on Fox. And this was fun. This was cathartic. We will have more fun going through our picks and trying to find any sliver of hope that we will beat the Packers on Friday. So
let's see. Do you want quick news?
Oh God, what just broke? We need to get out of here.
Well, a piece of metal fell from the roof on Cowboys Stadium, so that's probably going to delay the start of the game.
What? Oh no.
Yeah.
They were trying to fix the light situation.
Block the sun with some metal
situation. They were working on that, and they're like, "Oops! Oh no!"
Yeah. Oh, it is in Dallas. I thought it was in Houston. Oh, that's so. Oh my God, that's so funny.
Obviously, Lord. I don't know that we didn't get a chance to talk about it because they didn't play, but the Giants demoted sucky Daniel Jones. He's QB3 now. He's not even QB2. He's QB3. And Danny DeVito's back in the QB spot. Jones is never going to see the field again. He's got a $22 million injury guarantee for next year, so they're not playing him. Otherwise, he comes completely off the cap with no lost money, so they're going to get rid of him.
Oh, he's cut. Going all the way to emergency backup. He's cut.
Yeah, that's about it for news. But I thought that stuff was interesting.
That I do appreciate that. That was very funny. Yeah. Anyway, James, let us remind everybody who does our outro music.
Outro music, River Road, Justin Youth.
We'll get back on Friday. Beat the Pack.
Later, y'all.
River Road, you got me running way back home. River Road, you got me running all night long. You got me singing some canal boat song. River Road, you got me running all night long. River Road, where have all the women gone? Have they kissed her hand and waved you bye-bye? Have they thought about crossing your double yellow lines? River Road, they love the way you whine and cry.